If you are over 55, every passing year quietly increases your risk of facing one of the most devastating medical emergencies of our time: a stroke. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the risk of having a stroke doubles every decade after the age of 55. And nearly 3/4 of all strokes occur in people over 65. Yet most seniors go through their daily routines unaware that the very habits they repeat or the symptoms they dismiss could be quietly setting them up for tragedy. A stroke does not announce itself with a polite warning. It strikes suddenly, stealing speech, vision, balance, or even life in a matter of minutes. You may think it is just aging when your arm feels weak, your vision blurs, or your words stumble. But the truth is, these can be early red flags that your brain is being deprived of oxygen. Women in particular face an even higher burden, with 1 in 5 between ages 55 and 77 at risk, making awareness a matter of survival. The reality is sobering. Every 40 seconds in America, someone suffers a stroke. And while only a fraction are fatal, it remains the leading cause of long-term disability, robbing people of independence, mobility, and the joy of living life on their own terms. The good news is that many strokes are preventable if you recognize the dangers and take action early. In this video, I will walk you through 7 hidden risks that seniors must never ignore. From lifestyle choices to medical conditions that quietly erode brain health. And more importantly, I will show you how to fight back with practical, proven strategies that protect your future. Before we dive in, if you have not subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. Part 1. The hidden numbers and why aging women are at greatest risk. When we talk about stroke, many people think it is a rare event or something that happens only in very old age. The truth is much more alarming. Stroke is not only common, it is one of the leading killers and the leading cause of long-term disability in the United States. Every year, about 800,000 people experience a stroke, which means one American is struck every 40 seconds. For seniors, the risk is magnified. Nearly 75% of all strokes occur in people 65 or older, and the chance of suffering a stroke doubles every decade after the age of 55. This is not just a number on a chart. It is a real, growing threat that shadows the aging process. For women, the picture is even more concerning. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1 in 5 women between the ages of 55 and 77 will experience a stroke. Women not only live longer than men, but they are also more likely to die of stroke or live with severe complications afterward. Hormonal factors, including the use of estrogen-containing therapies and INSEMI-4, can add to the danger. That means if you are a woman in this age group, your stroke risk is not just a possibility. It is a pressing reality. Another important truth is that most strokes are first-time events. About 3/4 of the annual strokes happen to people who never experienced one before. This makes prevention and awareness absolutely critical. Many survivors tell me they never imagined it would happen to them. They felt healthy. They were still working, still independent. Yet within minutes, their lives were altered permanently. Stroke does not discriminate by how active or disciplined you think you are. It targets silently and often without warning. Even though stroke is the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States, only about 18% of strokes are fatal. That may sound reassuring. But here is the other side. Because the majority survive, stroke becomes the #1 cause of long-term disability. Survivors often live with paralysis, speech problems, cognitive decline, and emotional changes that strip away independence. The question is no longer only about survival. It is about the quality of life you will have afterward. Will you be able to walk, to speak, to care for yourself, to recognize your loved ones? These numbers are not meant to frighten, but to awaken. The reality is that stroke is stalking our aging population, and especially aging women, with quiet persistence. Yet, the fact that most strokes are preventable should give us hope. The first step is knowledge. By understanding just how widespread and dangerous this condition is, you are already preparing yourself to act. If these numbers surprise you, wait until you hear about the first major controllable risk factor. One that silently destroys blood vessels every day, and yet can be controlled with awareness and discipline. Let us move on to high blood pressure, the silent heartbreaker that fuels stroke risk in seniors. Part 2. High blood pressure, the silent heartbreaker behind stroke. If there is one single risk factor that towers above all others in causing stroke, it is high blood pressure. Doctors call it hypertension, but most seniors know it simply as the silent killer. Why silent? Because it often shows no obvious symptoms until it has already caused massive damage inside your body. You may feel fine, go about your day, and yet inside your arteries, the pressure is slowly wearing away at the delicate lining, stiffening the vessels, and making them more likely to rupture or clog. This constant strain is like having a tiny hammer tapping on the walls of your blood vessels every second of your life. Over time, those walls weaken, thicken, and eventually fail. In the brain, that failure is catastrophic. Studies show that people with uncontrolled high blood pressure are several times more likely to have both ischemic stroke, caused by a clot, and hemorrhagic stroke, caused by bleeding. The risk is not just theoretical. I remember one woman in her early 70s who came in with dizziness, blurred vision, and a sudden headache. She had ignored her doctor's advice to take her blood pressure medication because she said she felt normal. Her readings in the emergency room were dangerously high, and scans revealed a hemorrhage in her brain. What she thought was just a little tension turned out to be a stroke that permanently affected her ability to walk. For elderly women, this danger is magnified. After menopause, blood vessels become less flexible, and hormonal changes can accelerate the rise in blood pressure. Combine that with decades of salt-heavy diets, stress, and sometimes poor compliance with medications, and the result is a ticking time bomb. Many women blame fatigue or headaches on aging, but often the culprit is hypertension, silently pushing them closer to a stroke. The good news is that blood pressure is one of the most controllable risk factors. Simple steps make a profound difference. Reducing salt in your meals, walking briskly for 30 minutes most days, losing even a small amount of excess weight, and taking prescribed medications faithfully all help keep the numbers under control. Doctors recommend keeping blood pressure below 140/90. Or even lower if you have other conditions like diabetes. If you monitor your pressure at home, you give yourself power. A small cuff and a few minutes each day can alert you before disaster strikes. Think of it as an early warning system, a way to protect the very blood vessels that keep your brain alive. Because without strong vessels, your brain cannot function. And if high blood pressure is the most common controllable factor, smoking is the most dangerous self-inflicted one. If you thought lighting up only harms your lungs, wait until you hear how each puff doubles your stroke risk. Let us move on to the next hidden threat. Part 3. Smoking and secondhand smoke. Doubling the stroke threat. If high blood pressure is the silent destroyer of arteries, smoking is the fuel that accelerates the fire. Every puff of a cigarette sends thousands of toxic chemicals into your bloodstream, damaging the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. Over time, this damage makes arteries stiff, narrow, and far more likely to form clots that can travel directly to the brain. Current smokers face roughly double the risk of ischemic stroke compared with non-smokers who share the same medical background. That doubling of risk is not small. It is life-changing. And it grows the longer the habit continues. Secondhand smoke is no safer. Seniors who never smoked but live with someone who does inhale those same toxins day after day. The result is nearly identical damage to their arteries and lungs. I once treated an older woman in her late 60s who had never touched a cigarette herself. But her husband had smoked heavily in the house for decades. When she arrived at the hospital, after suddenly losing strength on her left side, tests confirmed she had experienced an ischemic stroke. The culprit was secondhand smoke and its decades of quiet assault on her vascular system. Women are especially vulnerable because nicotine interacts with hormonal systems in ways that further constrict blood vessels. Combine smoking with birth control pills or hormone therapy, and the risk of stroke skyrockets. For elderly women already living with high blood pressure or diabetes, smoking creates a dangerous cocktail that almost guarantees trouble. The problem with smoking is not only its direct effect on arteries. It also raises blood pressure, lowers oxygen delivery to the brain, and increases clot formation. In fact, within minutes of inhaling smoke, blood becomes stickier and more prone to clotting. Imagine how many times a day and how many years this cycle repeats in a smoker's body. But here is the hopeful side. The risk of stroke begins to drop almost immediately after quitting. Within weeks, blood pressure improves and circulation becomes more efficient. Within 1 to 2 years, the excess stroke risk is cut nearly in half. For seniors, it is never too late to benefit from quitting. Even at 70 or 80, giving up cigarettes adds strength, clarity, and years of independence. So if smoking is doubling your risk, what happens when you add diabetes and high cholesterol to the mix? That combination is like adding gasoline to an already burning fire. In the next part, we will look at how metabolic disorders silently erode brain health and set the stage for devastating strokes. Part 4. Diabetes, high cholesterol, and obesity. The metabolic storm behind stroke. When we think of stroke, we often imagine it as a sudden, unpredictable event. In reality, for many seniors, it is the final outcome of years of silent metabolic damage. Diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity, and physical inactivity create the perfect storm inside the body, slowly eroding the health of blood vessels until one day a clot or rupture tips everything over the edge. Diabetes is one of the most powerful drivers of this process. High blood sugar damages the inner lining of arteries, making them weak and sticky. Over time, these fragile vessels are more likely to accumulate fatty deposits called plaques. Once plaques form, they can break apart, sending clots to the brain and causing an ischemic stroke. Women with diabetes are particularly vulnerable. Studies show they have a higher relative risk of stroke compared to men with diabetes, possibly because of hormonal and vascular differences. For elderly women, diabetes is not just about managing blood sugar. It is about protecting brain health itself. High cholesterol adds another layer of danger. Low-density lipoprotein, often called bad cholesterol, acts like sludge in your arteries. It builds up on vessel walls, narrowing pathways that should be smooth and open. This narrowing is called atherosclerosis, and in the brain's arteries, it becomes a deadly trap. Even a small clot can completely block blood flow through an already narrowed vessel. I remember an older patient, 72 years old, who came in with sudden confusion and slurred speech. Her scans revealed multiple tiny strokes caused by cholesterol plaques breaking loose from her carotid arteries. She never realized that the rich foods she loved were quietly destroying the blood vessels that fed her brain. Obesity and inactivity fuel both diabetes and high cholesterol, magnifying their effects. Extra body fat, especially around the waist, triggers chronic inflammation and increases blood pressure. Lack of movement weakens circulation and encourages clots to form. Together, these factors create a cycle of risk that keeps compounding year after year. The hopeful truth is that small changes break this cycle. Losing even 5 to 10 pounds lowers blood pressure and improves blood sugar. A Mediterranean-style diet with fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and olive oil helps sweep cholesterol from arteries. 30 minutes of brisk walking most days strengthens the heart and brain circulation. These are not extreme demands. They are everyday choices that protect the very organ that holds your memories and identity. But even with perfect blood sugar and cholesterol, one hidden heart rhythm problem can still trigger devastating strokes. Let us now explore how atrial fibrillation silently sends clots to the brain and why seniors, especially women, must never ignore it. Part 5. Atrial fibrillation and the heart-brain connection. Among all the hidden medical conditions that raise stroke risk, atrial fibrillation stands out as one of the most dangerous, often called AFib. It is an irregular heartbeat where the upper chambers of the heart quiver instead of beating with steady force. This quivering allows blood to pool inside the heart. And whenever blood sits still, clots can form. Those clots can travel directly to the brain, blocking arteries and causing an ischemic stroke. In fact, people with atrial fibrillation have about a 5-fold higher risk of stroke compared to those without it. The danger is not only in the increased frequency of stroke, but also in its severity. Strokes caused by AFib tend to be larger and more disabling, often leaving survivors with significant paralysis, speech difficulties, or cognitive decline. For elderly women, the risk is magnified. Hormonal changes after menopause, higher rates of hypertension, and longer life expectancy all combine to make AFib-related strokes more common and more devastating in women than in men. The tricky part about atrial fibrillation is that many people do not feel it. Some notice a racing heartbeat, chest fluttering, shortness of breath, or fatigue, but others feel nothing at all. I recall one woman in her early 70s who came to the hospital after suddenly collapsing while shopping. She had no history of heart disease, but monitoring revealed silent atrial fibrillation. A clot had formed in her heart and traveled to her brain, causing a stroke. Without that diagnosis, she would never have known her irregular heartbeat was the hidden culprit. Doctors stress that detection is key. Simple tools like an electrocardiogram or even wearable heart monitors can reveal episodes of AFib. Once detected, treatment often includes anticoagulant medications, commonly called blood thinners, which dramatically reduce the risk of clot formation. While these drugs carry some bleeding risk, the protection they provide against stroke is usually far greater, especially for older adults. Lifestyle changes matter too. Controlling blood pressure, limiting alcohol, maintaining a healthy weight, and staying active all reduce the burden on the heart and help prevent AFib episodes. Some patients benefit from medical procedures like ablation or pacemakers. But for most seniors, careful monitoring and medication are enough to keep the heart beating safely. Atrial fibrillation is a reminder that the heart and brain are inseparably linked. A disturbance in rhythm in one can spell disaster for the other. And while AFib is dangerous, it is far from the only lifestyle trap that fuels strokes. Alcohol, drug use, poor diet, and chronic stress quietly set the stage for brain attacks too. In the next part, we will uncover how these habits accelerate stroke risk and what seniors can do to escape their grip. Part 6. Lifestyle traps that quietly push seniors toward stroke. Beyond the medical conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, and atrial fibrillation, there are lifestyle choices that quietly accelerate the path to stroke. These habits often seem harmless, even comforting. Yet in reality, they place enormous strain on the heart and brain. For seniors, especially women, the cumulative effect of these lifestyle traps can mean the difference between healthy aging and a sudden medical emergency. Alcohol is one of the most underestimated culprits. While small amounts may have mild protective effects on the heart, excessive drinking raises blood pressure, disrupts heart rhythm, and contributes to weight gain. Seniors metabolize alcohol more slowly, meaning even moderate amounts can linger in the bloodstream longer, stressing the liver, raising blood pressure, and creating conditions where clots form more easily. Women are particularly vulnerable because their bodies process alcohol differently, leaving them more exposed to its harmful effects. Illicit drugs like cocaine and methamphetamine are even more dangerous. They cause sudden spikes in blood pressure and constrict blood vessels, often triggering catastrophic hemorrhagic strokes. Even a single use can be fatal. Yet seniors sometimes fall into the trap of using stimulants for energy or appetite control, unaware of the lethal risks to their brain. Diet is another lifestyle factor that fuels stroke risk. Meals high in salt, trans fats, and processed sugar accelerate hypertension, cholesterol buildup, and diabetes. Over years, these foods stiffen arteries and weaken the very vessels that supply oxygen to the brain. In contrast, diets rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains are proven to protect brain circulation. Unfortunately, many seniors living alone or relying on convenience foods lean heavily toward the former rather than the latter. Physical inactivity is equally damaging. Muscles, including the heart, weaken without movement. Blood flow slows, making clot formation more likely. Sedentary living also fuels obesity, diabetes, and high cholesterol, creating a vicious cycle that relentlessly pushes seniors closer to stroke. Even light daily activity, such as walking or stretching, can break this cycle and restore vitality. Stress is a quieter but equally powerful trap. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, a hormone that raises blood pressure, disrupts sleep, and inflames blood vessels. Over time, this stress response becomes toxic, leaving the brain more vulnerable to stroke. Seniors carrying financial worries, loneliness, or caregiving burdens often live with elevated stress, unaware of the silent damage it is causing. Each of these traps may feel small on its own, but together they create a storm. The hopeful truth is that every lifestyle choice is a chance to change direction. Replacing harmful habits with healthier ones is not about perfection. It is about progress. And just as lifestyle can cause strokes, lifestyle can also prevent them. In the next part, we will explore powerful prevention strategies that give seniors the tools to protect their brain and reclaim control over their health. Part 7. Prevention. The power to reclaim control. The best stroke is the one that never happens. And the encouraging truth is that prevention is within reach for almost every senior. While age and genetics play a role, most of the key risk factors are controllable through daily choices. For elderly women who may already face higher stroke risks than men, prevention is not just important, it is life-saving. Blood pressure control is the single most powerful preventive step. Doctors emphasize that keeping readings below 140/90 and ideally closer to 120/80 dramatically reduces stroke risk. This can be achieved with a combination of medication when needed and lifestyle adjustments. Reducing salt intake, maintaining a healthy weight, and staying active all make blood pressure easier to manage. Think of every small reduction as a step away from danger and a step toward independence. Managing cholesterol and blood sugar is equally critical. A diet modeled after the Mediterranean pattern, rich in vegetables, fruits, nuts, fish, and olive oil, is proven to lower cholesterol and improve circulation. For seniors living with diabetes, steady blood sugar control prevents the vascular damage that so often precedes stroke. Pairing balanced meals with regular physical activity like brisk walking or swimming creates a protective shield for the brain. Tobacco must be eliminated completely. Quitting smoking at any age cuts stroke risk almost immediately, and the benefits continue to grow with time. Alcohol should be consumed only in moderation, if at all. For seniors, that usually means no more than one small drink a day. And for many, avoiding alcohol entirely is the safest choice. Exercise is medicine for the brain. Research shows that just 30 minutes of moderate movement most days lowers blood pressure, improves cholesterol, and enhances blood vessel flexibility. Seniors who walk daily, practice yoga, or engage in light resistance training protect not only their hearts but also their minds. These activities also reduce stress, another hidden risk factor for stroke. Prevention also means awareness. Knowing the FAST test and teaching it to family and friends ensures that if a stroke does occur, help arrives quickly. Preventive checkups, regular blood pressure monitoring, and open conversations with doctors about personal risk all keep seniors one step ahead of stroke. Prevention is not about living in fear. It is about living with intention. Each choice is a chance to protect your brain, preserve your memories, and extend your independence. And when seniors embrace these choices, they are not just avoiding stroke. They are actively adding life to their years and years to their life. Now that we have explored the risks, the lifestyle traps, and the prevention strategies, it is time for the doctor's final words. A closing reflection on why these lessons matter and how seniors can carry them forward. Doctor's final words. After decades of caring for patients, I have seen the difference between those who understood their risks and acted early and those who ignored the warning signs until it was too late. Stroke does not discriminate by wealth, background, or even good intentions. It comes for those who leave their blood pressure uncontrolled, who continue to smoke or drink excessively, who allow stress and poor diet to quietly chip away at their blood vessels year after year. But I have also seen the victories. Seniors who embraced small but consistent changes and went on to live longer, stronger, and more independent lives than they ever thought possible. The truth is that your brain is both fragile and resilient. Fragile enough that minutes without oxygen can cause irreversible damage, but resilient enough that years of healthy choices can strengthen its defenses, repair its connections, and preserve its function well into advanced age. Every decision you make, what you eat, how you move, whether you take your medications, whether you breathe deeply and release stress, is either protecting or endangering your brain. For elderly women, the urgency is even greater. Statistics tell us that women live longer, but they also suffer more strokes, often with more severe outcomes. That means prevention is not a suggestion. It is a mandate for preserving independence, memory, and dignity. Imagine recognizing your grandchild's face without hesitation, walking confidently across your living room without fear of falling, speaking your thoughts clearly and powerfully without slurring. These are not luxuries. They are the priceless rewards of prevention. So my final words to you are simple. Do not wait for symptoms to scare you into change. Do not dismiss dizziness, blurred vision, or weakness as just aging. Take them seriously. Seek immediate medical attention, and fight for your health before damage is done. Learn the FAST method, share it with your family, and never hesitate to call for help. Stroke is always an emergency, but it is also largely preventable. Share this message with someone you love. Let your life be an example that age is not an enemy, but an invitation to live with greater intention. Your body still remembers how to heal, and your brain still longs to stay sharp and alive. Give yourself that chance, starting today. If you found this video helpful, comment 1. If not, comment 0. And do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more health tips made just for you. Thank you for watching. And here is to living life on your own terms.